chapter 18 and verse 1. Let's start from there. Luke chapter 18 and verse 1. Jesus was teaching, and his character in his teaching ministry was to use parables. When he was teaching to a mixed multitude, he would usually use parables to explain the mysteries of the kingdom. And this was a parable. The Bible says, Luke 18 and verse 1, he spake a parable unto them to this intent, or to this end, that men ought always to pray and not to faint. So Jesus here, whatever else he's saying, is to buttress on this point, showing the power of prayer, that men ought always to pray and not to faint. He encourages all men to pray, not men in trouble, not men in need. He says the moment you realize you are a man, it is part of the requirements to remain alive, part of the requirements to remain effective. He says all men, not men in need, not men in trouble. God never prayed as God, but when God became a man, he prayed. There is no record of God praying as God, but when he became a man in the person of Jesus, he prayed. Even though the word, he prayed. And today, because he ascended to heaven and he's seated as a man, he still continues to pray, making intercession for the saints. Prayer is for men, not men in need, not men in need of power, not men in distress. Prayer is for men. The idea that prayer is just an emergency strategy to solve problems is the reason why most believers are prayerless. Because the narrative that has been sold to believers for many years is that prayer is just an emergency mechanism that helps you to solve problems. You see that? In my opinion, the highest expression of humility is to be prayerful. Prayerlessness is pride, because it is proof that you are declaring self-sufficiency outside of the assistance of heaven. When men pray, it is an expression of deep humility before God, in recognition that unassisted and by yourself we do not amount to much. Are we together? So he spake a parable to the end that men ought always to pray and not to faint.